Hello students, I welcome you all to this virtual learning online platform. In this class, I would like to talk on one of the very important aspects of English grammar called form and meanings. Friends, as you know, there are different forms of a sentence. More particularly, we take the form of a verb into consideration before talking about the form of a sentence. So in general, you have present form, past form, future form, perfective form, progressive form. So different types of forms are there, and they are all based on the form of the verb. When I taught you English tenses, I talked in detail about all these forms, and I defined the tense is nothing but a form taken by the verb. So whichever form the verb is going to assume, the verb is going to take. So you can simply say that the sentence is in that particular tense. It may be in present, past, or future. Now the topic that we are going to discuss is titled as form and meaning. Of course, based on the structural analysis of a sentence, you can define the form. But once you try to get the meaning of sentences, you will find that if at all there is a minor change in the form, automatically it will affect the meaning of the sentence. And here we are talking about that form and meaning. Let us proceed with this topic titled as form and meaning. So friends, as I said, today you will learn form and meaning. First of all, try to understand the form in linguistic and in English language in particular. As far as the form is concerned, it is a meaningful unit of speech. You have a morpheme, you have different types of words, you have different sentences, and all together, when you get a meaningful unit of speech, that is called the speech form. So each form has a particular meaning in a particular context. If the context changes, the meaning will also change. So it implies that a form can have different meanings in different contexts. Generally, the form of a sentence is identified based on the form taken by the verb of the sentence. Of course, you cannot construct a sentence without the presence of a verb. And the form that particular verb is going to assume, that will be generally called the form of a sentence. Look at this slide. I have provided you different forms of verbs. Generally, you call it V1, that is a base form, V2, past form, V3, past participle form, V4, progressive form, that is ing form, V5, S form, and then you have the future form also, that is supported always with the modal auxiliaries like shall and will, and these shall and will are called future tense makers or future tense indicators. And you can have a quick glance on all these words that I provided you for your better understanding of the various forms of verbs. Because when we talk about a few sentences in this context called form and meaning, you should really identify the appropriate form as provided over there in a particular sentence. Just for an example, I'll talk about the first word here. You have the base form V1, speak. The past form of this verb is spoke. Past participle form of this verb is spoken. Progressive or continuous form of this verb is speaking. S form of this verb, that is V5, is speaks. And if at all you want to make a future tense, you can make it with the help of shall or will, which are the future tense makers or future tense indicators. Then you need to say either shall speak or will speak. So this way, you can take any verb available there in English dictionary and you can go for the various forms of a verb. Now let us try to understand form and meaning in the context of some sentences. Generally, you are provided with two different sentences and you have to understand the form of both the sentences, and similarly, you need to analyze the meaning of the respective sentences. There will be a minor change in the form, but the moment you have a minor change in the form, you will realize that the contextual meaning of the respective sentence will radically change. And here we are going to learn about that particular aspect of English grammar. Let us look at this pair here. I decided to go to London. Another sentence provided over here is I went to London. Here you have I, first person singular number functioning as subject of the sentence. Decided to go. This is the entire verb phrase. Decided is in the past form, that is V2. To go is the infinitive form of the verb go. To London, this is the prepositional phrase functioning as adverbial of place. Now you look at the second sentence provided here on your screen. I went to London. You have I, first person singular number functioning as subject of the sentence. Went, this is the past form of go. So of course this went is V2. Then you have to London, prepositional phrase functioning as adverbial of place. So this is how you can structurally analyze both the sentences. But now let us talk about the form of both the sentences. The first sentence is in the simple past tense with an infinitive form to go. Because as a whole, if you see, the first sentence is provided in the simple past tense. But if you really interpret the verb phrase of this sentence, you will find that decided is in the simple past tense. But in addition, you have to go, which is the integral part of this verb phrase, and that to go is provided in the infinitive form. So the base form is go, infinitive form is to go. So this can be the form of this particular sentence. Then you have another sentence, second sentence, I went to London. The second sentence, that is, I went to London, is in the simple past tense. Go, went, gone. This went indicates that the sentence is in the simple past form, or you can say simple past tense. Now look at the meaning here. Both the sentences are in simple past tense, no doubt. One has the infinitive also, which is the part of the verb phrase, whereas the second sentence is purely in the simple past tense. But now you see that variation in the meaning of the sentences. The first sentence means that the speaker took the final decision to go to London. When you say, I decided to go to London, the meaning of this sentence is that I took the final decision to go to London. And it is quite obvious here. Now you look at the second sentence. The second sentence means that the action of going to London is already completed in the past. Right? The action of going to London is already completed in the past. That's why I say, I went to London. Some point of time in the past, I went to London. Going to London and coming back to my motherland, this action is already completed. It is the part and parcel of the past now. But when I say, I decided to go to London, it means the decision of going to London is already finalized. But whether I have really gone there or not, that is not clear in the first sentence. So this is how you should be able to derive the proper meaning based on the form and context of the respective sentences. Now look at the another pair here. He asked me not to be late. He asked me to be late. Both the sentences are in simple past tense, but there is a minor change in the form of both the sentences. The first sentence is a negative sentence, whereas the second sentence is an affirmative sentence. If you find the words of negation like no, never, not over there in a sentence, it means that that sentence is in the negative form. So he, third person singular number, functioning as subject of the sentence. Asked, A-S-K-E-D, is the past form of the base verb asked. Me is the object in the sentence. But see the structure and the sentence here. He asked me not to be late. The form of the first sentence is in the simple past tense with negation. Whereas the second sentence is concerned, he asked me to be late. The second sentence is also in the simple past tense, but this is an affirmative sentence. But now you see the change in the meaning. When you say he asked me not to be late, it means that he asked me to come to the spot on time. He expected me to be there before time so that I will not get late. Whereas the second sentence is concerned, he asked me to be late, it means that he asked me to be late intentionally. It means I should not reach out to the spot on time. It means I should not go to the spot before time. So intentionally, I should come late over there. So this is the change in the meaning once you find the minor change in the form of these two sentences. Look at another pair here. She came to collect her paycheck. She comes to collect her check. Now both the sentences are in different forms and both have the contextual different meaning also. First of all, look at the form here. The first sentence is in the simple past tense. You can easily make out. She, third person singular number, functioning as subject. Came to collect is a verb phrase, whereas the main verb of the sentence is came. Come, came, come, coming, comes, will come, or shall come. These are the various forms of this verb. Whereas you have to collect, which is the infinitive form also used over here. So the first sentence says, she came to collect her paycheck. Mind it well. She must be working somewhere as an employee. And of course, she came to collect her paycheck by the end of the month. Almost on first of every month, you get your salary, and the salary is being distributed by issuing the checks, right? So this is the meaning also. She came to collect her paycheck. Whereas the second sentence is concerned, she comes to collect her check. The second sentence is in the simple present tense. See, came, comes. There is a big difference between the forms of the verbs. So the second sentence is in the simple present tense with an infinitive form to collect. And this infinitive form is available there in both the sentences. But see the change here now. In the first sentence, it is called paycheck. In the second sentence, only check. It means she comes to collect her check, maybe for different purpose, but not of the salary check. She may be a vendor, she may be a supplier, they may be having some business with her. And whenever she comes time and again, she collects her check and go back. Now you look at the meanings of both the sentences. The first sentence means that she came to collect her paycheck and the action is completed in the past. Right? She came. What was the purpose of coming? Of course, to collect her salary check. So she came, she collected her check, she went back. The action of coming and collecting the salary check is completed. Now it is the part and parcel of the past. Whereas the second sentence says, she comes to collect her check. It means that she usually comes to collect her check. But mind it well, this is not the salary check. This is not the paycheck. She comes over here time and again as a routine. Maybe since she is into the business and they have, certain give and take in this respect. So usually she comes as a routine. It is quite habitual to her to come to this place and collect her check. But this is not a salary check at all. So this is the meaning in both the sentences. Now look at another sentence here, or another pair of sentences here. Rakesh will come tomorrow. Full stop. Will Rakesh come tomorrow? Question mark. Now you see the form of these two sentences. The first sentence is a declarative sentence and it is in the simple future form. Rakesh, proper noun functioning as subject of the sentence, will come. Will is the future tense indicator or maker. Come is the base form. Will come, it has become in the simple future tense. So Rakesh will come tomorrow. So tomorrow indicates, adverbial of time yet to come. So this is a declarative sentence. Subject, verb, adverbial. Now you see there is a slight change in the form of sentence. Will Rakesh come tomorrow? The second sentence is an interrogative sentence. You can easily make out. At the end of the sentence, you have a question mark there. And the beginning of the sentence is with the auxiliary shall or will, or here in this case, will. The second sentence is an interrogative sentence in the simple future form. So this is the interpretation of the form. Now you look at the meaning. First sentence is a declarative sentence. Second is an interrogative sentence. And here you have the difference in meaning as well. The first sentence means that there is a possibility that Rakesh will come in the indefinite time in the future. So the future time, that is tomorrow, yet to happen, yet to come. But it is said with an anticipation that there is a possibility that Rakesh will come tomorrow. And that is the obvious meaning of the sentence. Whereas you have the second sentence, will Rakesh come tomorrow, question mark. This sentence expresses a doubtful question. Okay, if at all you change your tone, it is also working as a doubtful question. Will Rakesh come tomorrow? It means I have a doubt whether Rakesh will come tomorrow or not. So this way also you can interpret. And anyway, future is always uncertain. You cannot make any certain prediction about the future. So the second sentence, will Rakesh come tomorrow, expresses a doubtful question about Rakesh, whether Rakesh will come in the indefinite time in the future. So you can anticipate, he may come, he may not, nobody knows. But as a matter of fact, future is always uncertain. Right? Now, let us look at another pair here. Gauri must die. Gauri may die. See, just consider it for the sentence purpose only. We should never have such kind of will and wish that somebody should die or live. Okay? It is not in our hands. I hope you know. Death is inevitable to everybody. You cannot shun death. Right? So Gauri must die is the first sentence. Second sentence is Gauri may die. Now look at the form of the sentence. Form of the sentence, especially the first sentence, shows obligation with the help of a modal auxiliary must. Because must is a modal auxiliary that shows a kind of obligation. Whereas the second sentence expresses the probability with the help of a modal auxiliary may. Okay, this is just a possibility or a kind of probability. It may happen, it may not. We are not sure about it. Now you see the minor change there in the use of the modal auxiliary like must and may, that drastically changes the meaning of the respective sentences. When you say Gauri must die, it means that Gauri must die at all conditions because she is not fit to live. Maybe for different reasons, or else you have, the green eye upon, and that's why you think this way. Whereas the second sentence is concerned, Gauri may die, it means that It means that Gauri may die soon due to some physical ailment or a disease. Either due to some physical ailment or due to some disease, she may die. She is already on the verge of death. She may die soon. But at what particular point of time, that cannot be said. But based on her condition, we can anticipate that she may die soon. So this is how the meaning of a sentence changes once there is a minor change in the form of a sentence. We will take one more sentence in this context. We respect women. We should respect women. Look at the form of these two sentences. The first sentence is in the simple present tense, whereas the second sentence uses a modal auxiliary should that indicates dutifulness. We, in both the cases, we functions as subject, first person plural number, respect we1, women is the object here. Okay, so we respect women. And another sentence is we should respect women. We, first person plural number functioning as subject, should respect verb form or verb phrase, you can say. Should modal auxiliary indicates dutifulness. To respect is a base form of the verb or infinitive form of the verb. Women is an object here. Now you look at the meanings. How the meaning is changed the moment you apply should over there in the sentence. The first sentence means that we respect women as a habitual action or a cultural value. Men and women are equally treated by the nature. Of course, we should not have any discrimination in this respect. And as a human being, of course, we should respect everybody, whether a man or a woman. So that way the sentence is said. We respect women. It is our habit. It is our cultural value. It is our action. It is a routine practice for us. We respect women as a habitual action or as a cultural value. Now you see the change in the meaning when you say we should respect women. The second sentence means that we should always respect them as a human being, and it is our social responsibility. Okay, we have our own values, cultural values, social values, ethical values, moral values. So as our social responsibility, in order to give equal status to women, we should respect women. So this way, the sentences are generally interpreted when you talk about the form and meaning of a sentence. Thank you very much.